Welcome into your Hog Hoops Report. Hayden Herrera joining you alongside Kevin McPherson. Kevin, another week of Arkansas, this time on the road in SEC play. We'll get to the midweek game in a minute, but what we saw Saturday night in Auburn, Auburn entered as home favorites against the Razorbacks. Some thought that was a little questionable, but in the end, the odds makers were right. This one was a drubbing, as the kids say. Auburn, a 95-73 victory over Arkansas, handing the Hogs their fourth loss of the season. Kevin, I believe Arkansas led for less than 2 minutes total in this one before it just really went haywire. What was your main takeaway from this one?
Yeah, Arkansas was up 8-6. Next thing you know, Auburn's on an 8-0 run, and the lead just kept expanding throughout. And this was a game where Arkansas controlled absolutely nothing. We're going to talk about that midweek game in a little bit. It was a win, but it was really unnerving how that game finished. The last 7.5 minutes, Arkansas defense basically disappeared and collapsed, and still hasn't been found or recovered. Where is the defense? It's not even optional. You can't say defense optional. That's a cute thing to say. I don't see them choosing that option, the Razorbacks, very often. Literally, Arkansas got exposed at both ends of the court. These were two top 15 offenses coming into the game, Auburn and Arkansas. When you look at Ken Palm's efficiency nationally, a couple of defenses going to the wrong direction, especially Auburn's. Auburn's defense ranked in the low 100s. Arkansas has, shifted from the 30s to the 40s to the 50s. Now they came into the game in the 60s. So it's been a devolving defense. And I think we saw the worst of it. It was Arkansas's largest defeat of the season, the only double-digit defeat. 95-73. And you see in this trend where teams are knocking on the door of hanging 100 on Arkansas. We saw it in the debacle against Houston, a few weeks ago. Now, Arkansas had won 4 consecutive games. But the defense hasn't necessarily played inspiring basketball, even for, maybe for a few brief stretches here and there. I think of a 5-minute segment against Tennessee where the defense kind of bowed up, maybe some other pockets here and there. But I think the big takeaway is Auburn was a really good offensive team coming in. Arkansas's defense not so good, and we saw which unit won out. And then you flip that. Arkansas had an elite offense coming in, similar to Auburn, and Auburn's defense was even worse than Arkansas's, and yet Auburn played off of Arkansas's guards, dared Arkansas to shoot threes, did a really good job with physicality, clogging up the paint, keeping baiting Arkansas into settling for three-point shots. 15 of Arkansas's first 22 field goal attempts were from three. That's more than 2-to-1 ratio of settling for threes. Auburn had its way at both ends, inside and out. Arkansas was embarrassed on national television.
When we look at the defense, we're taping this on January 11th. Is it too early to start ringing the alarm bells of this defense later on in SEC play as we get closer to March?
No, it's a perfect time to do it because the defense has progressively gotten worse. It's not an outlier. Arkansas defeated Ole Miss. Now we're going to talk about the midweek. And on my post-game show, it was kind of an in-game post-game, I was marveling at how bad the defense was to close that game, despite the fact that Arkansas's offense did just enough to hang on to win. I spent 2/3 of my energy talking about this defense is going the wrong direction. This is a problem moving forward. Now, because it's still January 11th, there's time to maybe correct some things and get it heading the other direction. But I see no signs from the available roster, the rotation, that's going to happen. It doesn't mean that it can't or that it won't. But I don't see any signs of it. In fact, I see a defensive effort that is devolving. So there are some things that Calipari could look at doing. Trying some variations of matchup zone defenses or disguising your man-to-man, similar to what Auburn did to start that game. And it looks kind of like a zone, but there are different ways for a team that's poor defensively to maybe address some of it. I don't know. We all thought a guy like Nick Pringle, for example, it's going to sound like I'm picking on one guy. We all thought that was going to be the enforcer, the guy that was going to go in and kind of control the paint and be a player that really puts his imprint on the physicality part of it, and makes opponents think twice about coming to the paint. That hasn't happened. A guy like Carter Knox only played 7 minutes, got hurt, but even at 6'6", he's a sturdy, strong-built guy. He played a lot more physically last year than I've seen him really do consistently this year. You can look, around the board. Arkansas, as talented as those two freshman guards are offensively, they got exposed again last night defensively. Everybody did. The only player who's consistently strong on defense is Billy Richmond III, but that's one guy. Trevor Brazile has certainly had his moments. His both ends of the court effort for most of the season. That's Buckley, by the way, my assistant. You hear chirping in the background. He's had enough of this poor defensive effort.
Clearly.
Apparently, I'm not exclaiming it loudly enough. He's helping me out here. But when you look at Trevor Brazile, he's been a little bit up and down in terms of, because he's not a physical presence. He plays better against physicality than he ever has in his career, but that doesn't make him a physical player. Malik Ewan, who had a double-double, he's limited defensively. He gets out of position. He reaches a lot. He doesn't really like physicality. And then you see him go, and he'll have stretches of the game where he's battling for rebounds, other things. It's kind of an enigma. You're not sure what exactly to make of it. So, let's say that Calipari can get more out of him in terms of defensive effort and impact. Let's say that Brazile continues to progress in that way. And again, I don't know, what scheme-wise he can do other than, to try to pack things in, but then you're susceptible to giving up, 3-point field goals and other issues that might arise. But if you look at Arkansas defensively, it's not just half court. The balance on the court after a shot goes up is terrible in getting back in transition defense. Arkansas gets exposed in transition. They get exposed on the half court. They get exposed in drives to the basket. They get exposed in good ball movement. They get exposed in two-man game. The rotations, the closeouts, all of these things are in question. And at the end of the day, when these teams get in the paint, there's just almost no pushback physically. So is it too soon to sound the alarm bells and the panic and push the panic button? Yes and no. I think the panic button, maybe, but setting off alarms, if people aren't seeing this going off, these alarms are going off. Last night was one of those nights where, that was like DEFCON 1, your poor defensive performance. And I can't even run away from the possibility that there are multiple players not giving as much effort on that end of the floor as is required. Because the only way you're going to overcome some of your weaknesses is to begin with all-out effort. That's a start. And I think some players are going to have to figure out how to embrace that. It's fun to play at the offensive end of the court. We see a lot of talent on that end. And then we see something else going on the other end in many cases, and it's concerning.
Is that why? I mean, you mentioned effort. I'm curious, your thoughts on Cal after the game saying, this was not my team. Burn the tape. This was off. Maybe effort plays into that.
Yeah, but I think I'm not saying it's disingenuous. I think he's right. I think the overall problem was even bigger than we've seen, other than maybe a good stretch of that Houston game, because there was, I felt like a lot of effort let down. However, the defense has been problematic all year long. There are points in games where Arkansas has won some big games against some really good offensive teams where the defense had its moments, made big plays, those kinds of things. But collectively, it's been an issue all year. And you continue to look at the efficiency ratings. They're not getting better. They're not maintaining. They're getting worse. There's a slide. And so at some point, there's a come to truth meeting where you don't kind of dance around it anymore. You don't bring it up. I mean, he didn't dance around anything last night, Calipari, but he did say this is not my team. Well, yeah, it kind of is. It kind of is. I think the overall avalanche of ugly basketball was a bit more than what we're used to seeing from this team, even defensively. So in that sense, he's right. But if we're being honest about the defense, it's a problem, has been a problem. And yet Arkansas's, 12-4, 2-1 in SEC play. The week wasn't a complete loss. But if you look at those two road games, the commonalities were Arkansas had a lot of issues defensively. Only one of those teams came in with an elite offense. The other one Not really. And yet Arkansas gave up a lot of points. I mean, you look at the two games, Arkansas's opponents, I can do simple math. I think I can. Averaged 91 points per game last week. Arkansas split those games. Grateful to do that. But that's a lot of points for a team that we were talking about coming into the season, Hayden. Maybe has a final weekend roster build, talent, retention. And now I can tell you right now, the way that this defense is playing, you're going to win. You're going to still win your share of games against quality opponents in the regular season. I don't know what it foretells for an SEC tournament, but when you get in the NCAA tournament and you expect to get to the final weekend with that defense, that's not happening. I don't care what the talent of your roster is. It's not happening.
One more note on this game, you speak of the talent. Darius Acuff, he led Arkansas with 19 points. Malik Thomas, 17 points off the bench. The freshman, it's funny, you expect at this point with the way Acuff has been playing that 20 points is just a guarantee. It wasn't, he got as close as you can without getting that barrier, but even if, it seems like a game that, even if he had scored 30 points, you look at the final score and that wouldn't have been enough.
Well, he had one assist. And here's a guy that's came into that game averaging just a tick under 20. I mean, 19.9 points, 6.2 assists. He had 19 points, but only one assist. Arkansas had more turnovers than assists in this game.
Yeah.
And he had 3 turnovers. And so, this is what's been extraordinary about Acuff is his ability to balance his role as a lead scorer and a lead guard who's setting the table. And Arkansas settled for too many 3 attempts last night. They didn't get in the paint. And when you get paint touches, it puts a defense in peril because usually if you're penetrating the paint, you've either beaten your defender that's on the ball or he at best is on your hip. But it forces help defenders to collapse and do other things, and that's where players get out of position, and that's where you get these kickouts to Trevor Brazile in the corner for 3 or to Billy Richmond cutting to the basket, whatever the scenario is. And so Arkansas didn't have that. So Darius Acuff Jr. really only produced one part of what has made him so good. The other part was almost shut out. He did not have a good game. Defensively, he was atrocious. Everybody was. I mean, It wasn't just him. I'm not going to single anybody else. Malik Thomas, he's got a lot of issues defensively as well. He scored some points last night. These two are very talented. They're Arkansas's 2 best offensive players. This team, though, the quality of what they could be in postseason will only matter if the defense improves and improves markedly. And I think there are ways to do it. I think some of it's just at some point getting people to buy in, but it hasn't happened yet. And I'm not going to call out Calipari for not knowing how to do his job, because here's a coach that's not just a great recruiter. He's had great teams and great seasons. But it's clear to me that he does not have enough buy-in on the defensive end from enough people for it to get contagious and spread a good way. It seems to me that this team does not challenge itself defensively to be the best it can be. And at the end of the day, the coach, the coaching staff, whoever's identified as the top leaders among the players, they're going to have to get full buy-in. Otherwise, we can look back on this season and say, man, Arkansas had some really good wins, despite the defense. But when you get to postseason, that's going to catch up to you, and then you're going to be going, we left some effort, some opportunity on that side of the ball on the table. Maybe trying to get their heads around that sooner rather than later. And I suspect Calipari has. If you listen to him in post-game press conferences, he gives the kind of messaging where he's constantly trying to convince them of something. But when the dust settles, either they'll be convinced or they're not. And, everybody's going to have a hand in that responsibility, whether it turns good or bad. Everybody can pat themselves on the back if they get it turned around. And if not, they could say, well, we knew this was a problem most of the season.
Arkansas now 12-4, 2-1 in SEC play. As we mentioned, there was a midweek game. We'll get to that. We'll also get Kevin's thoughts on the week ahead when we return on the Hog Hoops Report. We're back on the Hog Hoops Report. Hayden Herrera alongside Kevin McPherson. Kevin, we mentioned in our first segment, Arkansas midweek was in Oxford, Mississippi. I'm looking at the box score here, and it says attendance was 8,012. But if you watch that game, I think all of the Ole Miss Ole Miss Nation was in Phoenix for the Fiesta Bowl. They could not have cared less about what was happening on the hardwood in Oxford. Arkansas getting a 94-87 win. That was their first SEC road game of the season. What were your thoughts on, we kind of mentioned it, the defense towards the end, maybe not what people had hoped for, but in the end, Arkansas getting the win in road territory.
Yeah, so Arkansas moved to 2-0 with that victory. I think it was 94-87. First time Arkansas has been 2-0 to start SEC play in 11 years. You have to go back to 2014-15. One of the Razorbacks royalty, Bobby Portis, second team All-American, SEC Player of the Year. Now, put that in context, that team went 13-5 and finished second to John Calipari's Kentucky Wildcats that went not only undefeated in SEC play, went undefeated in the regular season and was still unbeaten before it lost to Wisconsin in the Final Four. One of those rare seasons where a team went unbeaten. But lost in that was that Arkansas, that was the last time Arkansas started league play 2-0. As crazy as that sounds, with teams in recent years that went to back-to-back Elite Eights, follow that up with two back-to-back six, or not back-to-back, but, two Sweet 16s in 3 years after back-to-back Elite Eight seasons. None of those teams could win as many as 2 games out of the gate. So Arkansas did accomplish that despite the defense. And again, when you look at winning in this league, especially on the road, you cherish it, you value it. I said going into the week, last weekend, if you go 1-1 and split these games, you pat yourself on the back. If you go 2-0, man, that's really good. That's what everybody wants, and that's really hard to do in this league. And if you go 0-2, then you're off to another bad start, even though you picked up that opening win at home against Tennessee. So those were the options coming into the week. And so Arkansas, mission accomplished. Anytime you go on the road in this league, a split's fine. I think the problem area is on the defense, and then in back-to-back games, that's a different discussion because we're looking ahead to what the potential is for this team or not. But based on the results of the week, a split's fine. You've got a winning. You're still on the plus side. You're 2-1 going into the upcoming week, and Arkansas doesn't know that feeling historically. Again, you look at the past several years. Arkansas's starting 0-5 or 1-4, 0-3 before they get their first win. Those kinds of things, and this is nowhere near that. The only thing now is how do you correct? Again, what opportunities do you have? How do you do it? Start improving in the areas that you really need it. Games themselves, we're no longer in non-conference play where you have bye games to maybe work on some stuff because even on a bad night, you're going to win probably. We saw Arkansas come dangerously close against Winthrop and I guess to some degree Samford, but these are league games now. You can't afford to experiment in game. You may be forced to at some point when things are, if you start off as poorly as you did against Auburn, you might try anything in the next go-round. But I think Arkansas, the upcoming week, I think they'll get right. I think Arkansas's got a chance to correct some things and get back in the win column. But it's nice coming out of a road swing, and you've only played one game so far at home, and you have a winning record.
Yeah, looking ahead to this week, Wednesday, Arkansas welcomes in the Gamecocks of South Carolina, late night start, 8 p.m., and then back on the road to Athens for a game against Georgia on Saturday at 3 p.m. Two different teams, Georgia playing really well. So one home game, one road game. What are you expecting this week?
Well, I think Arkansas will probably take care of business at home. I think the interesting thing is going to be that road game because Georgia is an elite offense itself. It's been top 2 in scoring in the country, got all kinds of really cool offensive metrics. You're on the road, and it's this defense that's gotten worse. It hasn't gotten better. It's not a bad defense that's marginally getting better. It's a bad defense that's getting worse. And so I know I keep pounding that, but you're going to go on the road to Georgia. So I think, when you look at it in totality, the week is one home, one road, but you add the previous week, Arkansas's got a stretch there, 3 road games out of 4 games. And so you've got to get back on the winning track against South Carolina in the midweek. And then you've got to figure out whether it's in that game where you start to show improvement on the defensive side of the ball, but whether you do or don't, you're going to have to put up some resistance better than what you did at Auburn, because Georgia's going to do the same thing. They're going to run away from Arkansas and threaten that 100 mark. And then, how good is Arkansas's offense in that particular game to maybe try to keep up? That's not a scenario you're hoping it turns into. If you're Arkansas, you don't want to be in a first team to 100 wins. You got to figure out a way to put together a lot more resistance defensively, have longer stretches of getting stops. The worst team in the league, Ole Miss, again last week, the last 7.5 minutes, there were like 9 or 10 consecutive possessions offensively for Ole Miss where Arkansas didn't get a stop. They didn't even make the first shot go awry and just gave up an offensive rebound or got bailed out by a foul call. They couldn't get stops, period. And then we saw they didn't stop Auburn ever. And so, these are the things you got to build on. But I think looking ahead, based on what I've seen right now, this looks like a week where Arkansas, if I had to predict it, I'd say, well, they'll split games. They'll beat South Carolina at home and probably lose at Georgia. Arkansas, and then you'd be 3-2, moving ahead, and you'd still have a winning record. This is a team, again, looking at roster build, we're talking final weekend coming into the season. What the reality of the season is and what we talk about don't have to measure up. But if you ever think you can be that team, you're going to have to start turning things around sooner rather than later. You'd rather be better in February as you're getting closer to March. That's true enough. So if Arkansas goes 1-1 next week, it's not the end of the world. But I'd like to see a team that bounces back at home, beats a South Carolina team that's going to be favored to beat, and then figures out a way to go and get another road win against a much more quality opponent in Georgia than what Arkansas got on the road. And it's the lone road win so far this season, which was Ole Miss, which is dragging the bottom of the league.
Should be an interesting week, no doubt. And, of course, we'll have your coverage across all of our Pig Trail Nation platforms. Kevin, as always, great to talk to you. This has been another edition of the Hog Hoops Report with Kevin McPherson. I'm Hayden Herrera. We'll see you next time.